mic issues, or really what it was is people joining in and then me getting muted. So I apologize for the video last week. I'm going to be redoing pretty much everything we did last week. I hope this week it will go a lot more smoothly, and I can explain things a little easier. Last week I was a little discombobulated. Work has been kind of owning me. I've been living there. Between all of the things I'm doing, figured out a particularly nasty network problem. If you guys know anything about networking, switching loops are really hard to diagnose when STP is working right. I had an old crappy Netgear switch that was plugged into one of our good switches, and it was just causing it to ramp up CPU. So that's been eating my time. And so I was a little discombobulated last week. This week, got it figured out, feeling better. So hopefully this will go a little smoother. So to start off, we're gonna go to the terminal. And one thing I want to go over is the kind of what the terminal is. I explained a little bit last week, but I want to just make it just real easy to understand. It is the shell, or basically what you're using as a shell. It is Bash, pretty much exclusively on any Linux system or Unix system even these days you come across. I've gone over it a couple times before, but whenever you see like Bash or terminal or console, generally these are all interchangeable terms. So that's what this is. It was actually a kind of a re-envisioning of the original Born shell. And so Bash is actually the Born Again shell, to just kind of be a play on words. So that's actually what Bash stands for. It's the Born Again shell. And it's BOURNE after the original Born shell. And that was originally a Unix shell. When they open sourced it, they wanted an open source version, so they called it Bash, or the Born Again shell. So very basically, I wanted to go over working with directories, what a directory is, and what files are. Last week, I attempted to go over ls and those sort of commands. Ls lists the files that are in your current directory. I have quite a few. This is my personal laptop, so I have quite a bit of stuff in here. So for example, ls it lists the directory. If I go here to my files and I go to my home directory, all of this stuff is in there. So this tickets PDF is this tickets PDF right here. Bash profile. This is hidden files, but this is the same thing. So effectively, I'm just getting to what I would here via the command line, and ls just shows me what's there. ls has what are called switches, which is the ls-l that gives you a long list, or an ls-a that shows you the hidden files, which if you see here, I have hidden files turned on, so you can see like a .blackboard. And I have a .blackboard somewhere in here, just to prove that it is the same thing. Yep, right there. And so an L is for a long list, and A is to list all files, including hidden files. And I think we also went over H, which isn't very useful on its own because it doesn't do anything different unless you use it in combination with another switch like LH. So ls-l, there's a long list, but ls-lh turns all of these relatively unreadable file sizes into something that are much easier to read, like 4K, 20K, 1.2 megabytes. And those are switches. Now, say I don't know how to use ls, I can use --help. And that's a switch to most programs that explains how to use that program or that command. Clear obviously clears the screen. I'm actually going to go back here so I stay on topic. So that's basically what ls is. PWD is print working directory. It shows the directory I'm in. Now the analogy here is exactly the same as my home directory here. It doesn't show you exactly where I'm at, but I could enable it. Don't remember how. Doesn't matter. This shows you that I'm in the home directory and the Steve directory inside the home directory. Now, for example, we went over this last week again, where we can do CD that goes to a different directory. CD stands for change directory. So say I want to go to just home, which I can't because I can't spell. And I do an ls in there, and you can see I have a lost plus found, which actually isn't a user directory, but I can explain that a little bit later. I have a Minecraft user, a Postgres user, a Steve user, and a user Bob user. And I can CD to ones I have access to. Or say I want to CD to etc. That's another directory. And I can ls there, and it shows me everything inside there. If you notice, there's also color codes here. Blue indicates a directory, or black indicates a file. There's also other indications for files. For example, this one is black background with a red. That indicates, don't remember what that indicates, but it indicates it's a special type of file. The light blue text indicates another different sort of file. And if I go back to my home directory, now I can go back to my home directory one of many ways, actually. And this gets into what a relative and what an absolute path is. Now, I can CD to home Steve, and that gets me to my home directory. Or if I go back to etc., I can also just type CD, and that takes me back to my home directory. And you can tell I'm on my home directory when I have this little tilde, as opposed to the directory name. So now I'm in my home directory. If I do an ls, it shows all of my files as being black, or my directories as being blue. I thought it would do, actually it does. If I go to my downloads, I do an ls, you can see executables are green. So that's actually a program. And this is an archive or a zip file, and it's red. And the reason, even though it says it's a jar, jars are actually zip files. Same thing, this is a tarball. Hold on, make sure I am good, right? Oh, you know what? You know, I thought I was doing better than last week, but I'm not sharing my screen. Awesome.
They can hear you, right?
Everybody can hear me, but no one can see what I'm doing.
Use your imagination.
Just imagine you were doing a CD. Great, awesome. Sorry, for those of you who are watching this later on, you probably are wondering what I'm doing. Crap, 10 minutes wasted. All right, starting over. So I'm just gonna go back, start from the very beginning. For those of you guys who are here, I'm sorry. Oh man, I'm an idiot. ls shows you the files in the directory you're in. You can tell you're in your home folder by the little tilde. You can change directory, which directory is, I think I went over this previously, it's like a file folder. Files are individual components inside that file folder. Directories and folders are kind of semantically the same thing. In this case, I'm going to CD to, desktop. I have files on my desktop. If I do an ls, ls shows me the files. It's short for list. Shows me the files and directories. Directories are blue. Files are black. If I go back, I can go up one directory by doing a cd dot dot. This allows me to, navigate within a certain directory structure pretty easily. So instead of having to type out cd home Steve, if I go back to desktop, I can just do cd dot dot, and it takes me back to the tilde right here. I'm good there, right? Good. So the tilde is where I know that I'm in my home directory. I can tell I'm in my home directory by doing an ls. I can also go to other directories by cding. So we'll go to music. I don't think I have anything in there. I do. Lots of good stuff. YouTube. Where did I get this stuff from? Suave de Palo. Nice. Yeah. Along with Yellow Card and Zach Brown. That's some, and Manu Chao. That's like all sorts of musical diversity there. And then I can hit cd dot dot to go back up into the directory above that. So got cd. Oh, pwd also shows you what directory you're in. So if I do cd desktop, I can spell pwd. You see I'm in home Steve desktop. Or I'm in home Steve music. And then who am I, man? cd, ls, cp, mv. Oh yeah, we'll go over copying and moving files. So let's say I have a file. I'm going to create a file by using touch. Touch is an interesting tool because it allows you to touch. Say you wanted a file and you wanted to update the timestamp on that file. You can actually use that via touch. Or say you want to create a blank empty file. You can use touch to create an empty file. So I'm going to touch file.txt. Now if we look by doing an ls, you'll see there is, or should be, a file in here. Just kidding. Why didn't that work? Oh, probably because I didn't call it a file. I called it file.txt. Oh, awesome. For those of you who are unaware why I just paused there, the lights went out in this room. They're connected to a motion sensor on the actual light switch for this room is on the ceiling. And so there's a motion sensor that whenever there's actually movement in the room, it will keep the light on, but if there's no movement, it turns the light off. So because everyone was sitting and being very still, the lights just turned off. Anyway, so here's the file I created, just called file.txt, and you can see it's 0 bytes. It's empty, completely empty. If I cat it, it's completely empty. There's nothing there. And cat is short for concatenate. It's a command that allows me to show what's in a file, particularly text files. So I'm actually going to edit this file using Vim, and actually you guys probably won't have Vim, so let's do Vi, which is the same thing, but a little bit different. The command's different. So to file.txt, I'm going to type in hello world. And I'm going to, Vim is actually an interesting editor. This is just something I want you guys to be aware of because we will be using it later on. Vim is a text mode text editor. So you don't need any GUI to edit files. I can use Vim to do that. Now, I typed in hello world. When I first open this, I'm actually quitting out of this. I'm going to start typing by hitting I to go into insert mode. And you can see the little thing down here went to insert. So I just hit I on the keyboard to do that. And now I can type in hello world. Now to get out of insert mode, I hit escape. And to save and quit, I hit :WQ. That saves that file. Now if I cat file.txt, it says hello world. Now let's say I want to copy this file somewhere else. I can do cp file2.txt. So now I have a file.txt and now a file2. So I'll cat file2.txt and it says hello world as well. Let's say I want to rename a file or I want to move a file somewhere else. I can do that just by doing mv and then doing file to file3. Now, if you notice, I actually jumped the gun on hitting enter there, and I didn't put an extension on this. Now, with Windows or even Mac to a certain extent, it would not know what this file is because there's no extension on it. There's no metadata to tell it what it is. But with Linux, there's no restriction on that. So Linux I can just cat this file just like any other file, file3. But if I cat file.txt, it's not there anymore because I moved it, or I changed the name of it from file.txt to file3. You guys on my wavelength, sort of? Okay. Cool. So that's copy, that's move. CP is short for copy, MV is short for move. Vim, or Vi, stands for visual editor, which is kind of a misleading name for a editor, considering it's text mode only. Oh man, almost forgot man. So say you're doing ls/help, right? And you're still not figuring out exactly what you want to do. What you do is you go to man ls. Man is short for manual. And what it is, it shows you all sorts of good information about the ls command. In this case, ls, the name is list directory contents. It gives you a synopsis, so ls, option, or file. And the description is list information about the files, the current directory by default. Sort entries alphabetically if none of these options or sort is specified. Mandatory arguments to long options are mandatory for short options too. That's a little bit nerdy speak. They didn't do a very good job of explaining exactly how that works. But this gives you a list of what each option or argument to the command is. So for this, it's A, or alternatively, you can either type -A or ~all. This just means that they both do the same exact thing. Or in this case, right, capital A is almost all, which excludes dot and dot dot. B shows print C style escapes for non-graphic characters. So for example, if you have a space in a file name, that has to be escaped, and so this will actually show you those escape characters. This shows you block sizes. So if you have certain requirements, like your block size or your file system's weird, you can specify it here. But this is really useful information about every possible switch to the entire command. Like, this is exhaustive. It gives an example for everything that you can do with ls. It also gives you the author who wrote it, which in this case was Richard Stallman and David McKenzie. And Richard Stallman is probably one of the biggest names in open source. He's, well, at least once you get into it. You know, Linus Torvalds might be more publicly popular, someone to know. Not quite as popular as like Steve Jobs or Steve Wozniak even. But Richard Stallman, huge guy. He wrote. I'm not talking about in size, but like in the open source world, he's really important. He actually started the GNU project, which pretty much everything on, around the core of Linux is licensed as. It's licensed under the GNU public license, also known as the GPL. It's a very, very important license that Richard Stallman came up with. He also wrote a lot of the core utilities that you use, for example, ls. So you can see that he wrote this. If you want to report bugs, you can actually submit. If you have a problem with it, you can submit it to these, this homepage, or you can actually send an email saying, hey, I have a bug with this software. It shows you the copyright, which also shows you the license, which is GPL version 3+. It gives you a link to that license, and it also gives you references. So this is like having an entire library of documentation about almost all of the core utilities on your system just by typing in man. And to exit man, you just type Q, and it goes away. So man is a really useful command, especially if you don't know what you're doing, but you kind of know what you want to do. Man is really, really helpful. Another thing is, who am I? It shows you your username. So say you log into a system, or you come up to a system that's already logged in, and all you see is like this. How do you know what user you are? Or how do you know what user you're running as? You can do that by just saying, who am I? Shows you your user. More, tail, less. Oh, yes. So this will become more important as time goes on. To make sure I'm still presenting, still got mic. Gotta check that every once in a while. Log files, we are going to be using them a lot. Log files are the lifeblood of getting anything to work on Linux, because things will not work the first time. If you do have it work the first time, you're setting yourself up for probably future failure. But things never usually work right away out of the gate. And that's where looking through log files, because the computer will tell you what is wrong and how to fix it if you just know how to look through the logs to figure out what's going on. Can you not get into your system?
I forgot my password.
Oh, do you know your root password?
It's the same thing, I'm pretty sure.
No. You can drop down to a shell and try your root user. So Control-Alt-F2. So like I was saying, logs are super, super important. So I'm going to do cat, since we did talk about cat earlier, and we're going to do var log messages. No, we're not, it doesn't exist anymore. We're going to do var log something you guys will have. I have a lot of log files because I have had this system for quite a while. Let's do boot log. You guys should have a boot log, right? Confirmation boot log, boot.log, and var /var/log boot log. Perfect. Awesome. So if I cat this, if you guys have noticed when you boot your system, it has this. And this just shows what was on the screen. In this case, right, I had failed to start sound card packet modem. Darn. But it shows what happened on boot. So that's pretty cool. But I see a lot of OKs here, right? And I see one failed. How do I know what failed? I can either scroll with my mouse here, but say I'm on a text terminal and I don't have the ability to scroll with my mouse. I can do that with more. What I did there was I did that same cat /var/log/boot.log. I put a pipe symbol, which is this bar. It's just above the enter key on most English language keyboards, at least US English keyboards. It's a little pipe symbol. It's just a vertical bar. and then I did more. Now, more is very useful, but more has a better program out there called less. I'll go over both of them. More is awesome. Less is more awesome than more. But this shows me I can page through just by hitting enter. Enter does one line, space does a whole page. And so I can look through this log pretty quickly to see where there were failures. Like there's that failure I was looking for. And I can just keep hitting space to go through the whole thing. But that wasn't very useful because I couldn't go up. So instead of doing more, I'll do less, which did not like the colors there. Interesting. But what it does allow me to do is I'm using the arrow keys to hit. If I hit down, I can go down by one line. If I hit up, I can go up. So I can scroll through here and go, yeah, okay, I see that I reached target swap. That's cool. Let me hit page down to go page down. Go one full page of text down. And I can still use my scroll bar or my scroll wheel on my mouse to go up and down. But I can also use the keyboard to do this. And this probably isn't as useful when you have a GUI. Last, you just hit Q. But when you don't have a GUI and you're totally just up a creek, and you don't have a GUI, you have no other options, you can use this to get around a lot easier than just one page text at a time. So more and less. Less is more, but better. It's kind of a programming nerd's way of looking at the world. Uname, sudo, exit, and history. All right. Now, occasionally, and this will actually come up later on, uname is short for Unix name. And what uname does, it says I'm running Linux. If you guys are running a Mac or anything else, you can type in uname as well. It'll actually say like Mac OS or Unix or SCO or whatever version of Linux you're running. You can type uname and it'll give you that information. Now, uname-a gives me more detailed information. In this case, it gives me what operating system I'm running, which is Linux. It gives me my host name, and it gives me my version. You guys are probably actually running a newer kernel than I am. I'm running 3.17.7. What are you guys using on 21? Should be the fourth field, like 3. Really?
Yeah, 4-2.
I'm pretty up there then. I'm running 3.17.7. Fedora 20. This stands for FC20. Fedora Core 20. And I have x86-64. These are other options like SMP stands for symmetric multiprocessing, which means that I can run multiple things. I have multiple cores in my system, and that the system is GNU Linux. Now, interestingly enough, there are, I don't know if you guys know anything about VMware. VMware produces a product called ESXi, and it runs a Unix shell. You can log in, it has bash, but they tell you that they are not Linux. But when you do a uname-a on ESXi, it says ESXi here for OS name instead of Linux. It'll say ESXi. But here at the very end, it will say GNU Linux. And so I've always wondered if that's like some like illusion that they really are just Linux, but are hiding the fact that they're Linux. But this is just telling you what sort of operating system you're running. And this is very useful. Say you log into a box, you have no idea what it is, you just have a terminal. Like you could find out that you're running on a Mac just by doing uname-a. So that's that. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit more. We talked about who am I earlier, right? That tells you what user you are. Now, let's talk about sudo and su in general. SU, or su, stands for switch user. Generally, this is implied with SU that you're switching to root. So when I do SU, it's going to ask me for my root password, which I hope I typed in right. I did not. There we go. So you can see now that my $ here is changed to a hash. And this means that I'm now root. But I can tell you that I'm root by doing a who am I? And it tells you that I'm root. I'm going to exit here. I'm going to do something very subtly different. It's two ways of getting to the same thing. I'm going to do a sudo, but I'm going to do a -I. And sudo is short for switch user do. That means I can run a command as another user. So I can do a sudo ls, which is going to ask me for my personal, the password for Steve. And it does, you know, this command, this ls command, as root. So to show you how that it's actually doing that, I'm going to sudo who am I? It says root, right? So that means that command, who am I, is being run as root. Now this will come into play later on when we're installing services, installing stuff. You'll need to be root when you do this. So doing su, I can get to root. And doing sudo, I can run commands as root. But if I do a sudo -I can also get to root. And you can see I now have a shell, just like I did with su, but I did a sudo -I. Now this is actually an important distinction because it comes down to logging. When I log in using su to get to root, it counts basically as if I was logging into the system as root. But when I do a sudo -I, it logs and says the user, Steve, is being upgraded, is being elevated to root. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but when you have a system with, like, say, 100 different users, one, you're not giving out the root password to anybody, but you may need to have people get in as root. So to get them in as root, you give them sudo access and allow them to do things as root, but not necessarily give them direct root permission. So the sudo -I allows you a root shell, even if you don't have a root password. So I'm going to exit. That gets me back to my user session. I could have also typed logout. In bash, exit is actually an alias for logout. And it actually echoed out logout there because it was telling me that's what it was doing. Oh. Okay, so we got that. History is the other thing I wanted to go over. History just shows me the number of commands, or which commands I just ran. So every command that I just done is right here in this list, which is nice when you want to go back and be like, hey, there was that command I ran a while ago, right? Like, I want to go to less. I want to know what all this stuff is, right? Like, I want to know what I typed in yesterday. So that's another usefulness of less. Was there anything else on this list? Ooh, tail. Almost forgot tail. Taking a step back to the logs, if we go back to here where I was catting out the boot log, instead of doing cat, so cat just does everything. Say I only want the last little bit, because in a running system, your log file is going to get big, like really freaking big. So in order to just see what the last few lines were, you can do tail. And if you see this, I only have the last, half dozen so lines of this log file that I outputted here. So tail is actually really useful in that I only see the last few lines, which in the case of most things that we're doing is going to be very, very useful in the future for just doing tail. So more than anything, just want to throw it out there. It's for you guys to use, try, play. If you can't get it to work, that's fine. You know, send me your problems. I've had a few of you email me, and I apologize for not being very good about getting back to you on email. I am sorry. Also, for those of you who accidentally got dropped, that's also my bad. I'm sorry. The whole thing is, I don't want to get into the politics of it. It's kind of silly sometimes, but I'm sorry if I did accidentally drop you. Send me an email. Let me know. I will email you, get back in the class. That's quite a ways into this video to be talking about that, but sorry about that. That's it for that. Now to something a little more cool. We'll stick a pin in the command stuff for today. I wanted to show you guys wine, and we're not totally done with the shell yet. We're going to do a cd-i, get into your root shell. We're going to do yum install wine, and I'm going to do wine star because I think I already have it installed, but for those of you who don't have it installed yet, it'll be useful to install everything. This goes through and will automatically install everything related to wine. And what wine is a Windows API for Linux. So it allows you to run Windows programs on Linux. Ironically, it actually stands for wine is not an emulator. It's a recursive acronym. Holy crap. Are you kidding me? Oh, it's just updating. I know. All right, whatever. No. So I already have wine installed, and I already downloaded under downloads. I downloaded Notepad++ because I know it works pretty well with wine. And I'm actually going to open it with wine because it by default will want to open up with the Archive Manager. So I'm going to open up with wine. So I right-clicked on it and went to open with wine. And so it pops up. I've configured mine to have its own separate desktop. And here's the Notepad++ installer. I'm going to go ahead and install it. And you can see here it has C, program files, x86, Notepad++. I'm going through installing it. You can actually install games on Linux with wine, or Windows games. This is the, what are those, Je suis?
Yeah, it's the new update. I use it.
Yeah, no, Notepad++ is awesome. This is the new update. This is a feature they added in where they start typing automatically. It was for the attack in Paris. So, Je suis Charlie or something?
Yeah. I thought that was so cool that they were able to do this.
So, you guys know about the attack in Paris, the terrorist attack? It was Charlie Hebdo or whatever. I think that's the name of the guy. Anyway, Notepad++, the developer, I think he's actually French, but he did this as kind of a way to speak out, saying free speech is a basic human right. Anybody trying to go and, you know, take down free speech is a douche. And so that's why this message is in there, you know, the whole Je suis Charlie, yeah, not meme, but hashtag or whatever Twitter nonsense is going on. Although it seems like something is messed up because I can't click on anything. Neat. That's pretty neat. Awesome. So this was a bad idea.
Are we watching somebody like typing each other?
No, it's a feature in the program where it actually types out it automatically when you first install it, or first open it after the install of the update. Wow, that is really just, my mouse is dead. Okay, so what we're gonna do, crash course, now that you see that I have a hung program that's misbehaving, we're gonna go over basic process management. PS shows you processes. I'm gonna do a PS AUX to show me all the processes. And I'm gonna search for wine. Grep is search. Don't know what it stands for. Ah, yes, there we are. And I want to kill. Actually, I want to kill Notepad++. Yeah, there you are. Kill -9. No more CPU time. Kill -9. Now, if you noticed, I don't know if you guys were paying attention, that window went away and it died horribly. And my mouse is back. Awesome. So basic process management. This is probably a little bit more advanced than what I wanted to go over tonight, but you guys can go ahead and try killing stuff if you want. Have fun. Kill -9 is very aggressive. It is very, very aggressive. So it'll kill pretty stuck processes. I think that's it. If there's anything else, email me. My Gmail's a lot better to email me at than anything else. Before I go, I want to show you guys the wine compatibility database. appdb.winehq.org. If you guys are interested in doing Windows programs on Linux, I can't talk tonight, go to appdb.winehq.org. They have a huge list of what programs run really well on Wine. The platinum list means you just install and go. If you look, there's like EVE Online, StarCraft 2, Fallout 3, one of my favorite games, Left 4 Dead, Counter-Strike, The Sims 3, Warcraft 3, Command & Conquer. I think WoW. Oh, WoW is in the gold list. Final Fantasy Online, StarCraft 1, Steam. All of these things. Gold is like applications that work flawlessly with some special configuration. If you look at this, like say you're a WoW player, like a lot of people like WoW. I'm not a big fan. But it shows you, like, this is the test results. What works? Mouse and keyboard, sound, add-on. What does not? Cinematics. So cinematics don't work, but audio and subtitles work. So if that's a big deal to you, then I guess you probably will, not do it. But if you do, if you don't care about cinematics and you just want to go on raids and, farm some experience, then go for it. This guy gives his hardware, what he's running it on, shows what driver, and then we'll give you usually some examples of like what they did to get it to work. Here's Fedora 21, what they did. So what works? Almost everything. What does not? Cutscene cinematics get green screen. The Horizon clickable quest items don't appear pronounced or at all. The game runs smoothly, even faster at high FPS than my Windows machine on proprietary NVIDIA drivers, but a few of the visual artifacts don't appear at all or significantly reduced. So, this sounds like one of those things where I would say, this looks like it's good to go. If you wanted to play WoW, you could just go ahead and install it through Wine. And this is guys running on Fedora 21, gives you great test results. A lot of these, just because they're running like Arch or Ubuntu or something, doesn't necessarily mean it won't run on your distribution. It just means that that's what they use to test it with. And a lot of that has to do with what version of Wine they're using as well, which if you look here, Fedora 21, you see they're using Wine version 1.733, whereas on Arch they were using 1.7.32, or on ZZ don't use. But whatever. I mean, this is a good database, especially if you do like Linux, but you also like your games that you wanted to play. I have StarCraft 2. I don't have it installed on this, but I've played it. It was awesome. Also, Sid Meier made a game. It was actually kind of clever, but it got boring after a while. What was it called? Don't remember. Doesn't matter. But it was, I installed it. It was a Windows version, but I installed it on Linux. Worked great. Look, you can do Grand Theft Auto 5 and do some burnouts on rims. So wanted to show you guys that. I'll actually put that in the update here to this. So you guys have it. Cool. That's it for this week. I will talk to you guys next week.